Welcome. Come on in. This is Let's Bet, the show about folks who love betting on sports, but they hate losing money. I'm going to show you how to increase your sports betting bankroll by gaining confidence so you can ultimately live the lifestyle that you deserve. I'm your host, Scott Pritchard, professional full-time sports bettor, 31 years. Founder of PritchardsPicks.com, took third place in the Circa Invitational last season. Every weekend you can find me in the Las Vegas Review-Journal talking college and pro football. We're broadcasting live and worldwide from beautiful Sin City, Las Vegas, Nevada. On demand on PritchardsPicks.com and on your favorite podcast video distribution platforms. To reach out to us, we encourage you to do so by emailing us at letsbet@pritchardspicks.com. That's letsbet@pritchardspicks.com. Now let's get started. Big show, added value, no added cost. 2 for the price of 1 today. The last few minutes we'll be talking UFC betting for this weekend. Big event Las Vegas next weekend at the Sphere. Ace Wellerstein will be joining us. Master UFC bettor handicapper. First things first, pro bettor. College football expert, my friend, mentor, colleague, and all-around great guy, Brad Powers. Brad, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Look forward to this.
How's life, my friend?
Hit or miss. So week one, there were some surprises to say the least. I wish I could have hit a little bit better, but it was, your average start to a college football season.
I was listening to a podcast on Monday. You were speaking and you had mentioned the Old Dominion East Carolina game for this upcoming weekend. And you said that you liked over 51 and a half. I got to my computer a few hours later. It was at 52, but it's since gone vertical. I guess you speak, people listen, because there's been a move on the total over to your point a few days ago.
Yeah, I don't know if I was directly related to all that movement. I just think there's been a fundamental change with those two teams. Both of them are playing extremely fast and didn't necessarily get reflected in last week's scoreboard. So early in the week, numbers are moving. The markets are moving faster and earlier than ever. Even the guys that have bigger bankrolls are going earlier than ever. So you got to get out in front of stuff. Closing line value is not the end all, but boy, over a large sample size, it is.
I wanted to ask you about that CLV, spelled just the way it sounds, closing line value. I'm a firm believer that if you're laying 3.5 on Tuesday, the closing number on Sunday is 5 long-term. You're going to be a winning, successful sports bettor. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with it. And now, obviously, in any individual game, it might not mean anything. But boy, I always ask people, hey, if you don't think closing line value matters, how about you give me that half point on every game and let me, or how about this? How about, 5 minutes before kick, I can bet any game I want, but I can use the opening line as my line that I can choose to bet. And people don't take me up on that. So tell me it doesn't matter. It matters over the long haul.
Well, I'll expand on your point because I know during the course of the regular season, 32 teams, 18 games a weekend over, 5 to 6 months. We're talking about 172 NFL football games. If you can grind, scalp, steal, extort a half point per game, that is 136 free points. If there's 272 games during the course of the regular season and you're getting a half point, the best of it, that's 136 free points, which is obviously pretty darn significant.
To say the least, and significant as far as your overall win percentage by the time it's all said and done. And your ROI is going to be significantly greater with those points. Doesn't sound like much, but particularly in the NFL, a very liquid market, the most liquid market as far as United States betting, means a hell of a lot.
I know you've made quite a name for yourself in this town as a living legend, especially when it comes to college football. Handicapping, is that your favorite sport to handicap, Brad?
Well, I don't know about living legend there, maybe in my own mind, but I appreciate that. But yeah, it is where I've got almost all my focus now. I certainly do a few other sports as far as the NFL, maybe a little March Madness. But as time wears on and we have increased roster turnover on a yearly basis, when you factor in the transfer portal, NIL creates some different issues. I focus more and more on college football. And also, this market is a year-round sport now. There was win totals in college football posted in February this year, earlier than ever before. It used to be post July 4th. You might get some win totals. You might get a game of the year market at the Golden Nugget. Now you're getting stuff like this held before March Madness.
What separates a pro bettor from the average Joe?
Good question. Uh, Boy, I would say a variety of things, but I think that number one would be just the outs, just having, instead of, just relying on one or two outs, the ability to bet at 10, 12, 20 different places. I mean, it's as easy as that. Just the ability and the want to, I think is critical to shop and get that absolute best of number whenever you can. Whenever you are making a bet, you want to get that best number that you can at that particular time. And I just think the average Joe just doesn't care. He just opens up his one app and he makes that bet. You'd be surprised. Just you don't have to know anything really about any sport, but if you're a professional shopper, you can. I'm not saying it's a guaranteed winner, but you'll win more than most.
Having done this for 30 plus years, I was feeling pretty good about myself. The fact that I have access to 14 different outs until last week's guest, Pro Bettor Chris Zanuck, said that he had 26. I said, well, I guess what I can do, you can do better. But what about you, my friend? How many outs do you have, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, I'm right. I'll say the ones I regularly use, probably about. I'm in your area, about 14. And last I checked, there's ones I'm using regularly. Now, if I wanted to bet at a certain spot, maybe that number is closer to where Chris was last week, 25 or so. But regularly, dozen. And I think you're good. I would say this: you don't necessarily, just because I say you can never have as many enough outs, but I would say where you start to see, the bell curve after five or six, especially if you've got a good balance offshore, onshore, sharp, square book. After five or six, when you keep adding books, there's a little bit less, chances of that greatly affecting your ROI.
You mind sharing 1 to 3 top plays, best bets? We have 2 college football games tonight, full schedule on Saturday. Your thoughts, best bets for the weekend, college and or pro?
Well, you don't have to wait till Saturday. I like one tonight. The market's not wild about it. But that's fine. If the market always agreed with me, then and it always won, then I probably wouldn't be here talking. But the one that I disagree with the market move tonight is I like BYU against SMU. I think SMU's being overhyped in the marketplace. You go back through last year's team. Yes, it was the best SMU team in 40 years, but they really benefited from a weak schedule when they had to step up against TCU, had to step up against Oklahoma, had to step up in the bowl game against Boston College. You saw where their true strength was. Not that BYU is any great shakes or this is even a good BYU team, but they're better than a lot of the teams SMU beat up on last year in the American. And I just think they'll be laying double digits against an old veteran BYU team that even at the end of last season almost outright upset Oklahoma State in the finale, almost outright upset Oklahoma in their home finale. They'll play with a chip on their shoulder getting double digits here. Give me BYU plus the 12.
BYU plus the 12, compliments of Brad Powers, professional sports bettor, expert when it comes to college football. And is this something that you do on a 12-month annual basis, primarily college football, even during the off season? You're looking at training camps and the ins and outs of what's going on?
That's all I do. I watch about 50 to 60 spring games that occur in April. So I'm doing that. I got to be ready because I do think there's value in betting season win totals and futures. I know it's several months in advance. I know the sports books have your money, but I always say this, and obviously you need to develop a track record, but I've followed it and tracked it for the last 3 years, and I'm at about a 13% ROI on all those futures and season win total bets. And look, the S&P 500 over the last 100 years, what, 10% average ROI? I got 13%. Plus, most importantly to me personally, I like betting college football. I don't enjoy trading stocks. So, I don't mind betting and having stuff, all year round on just one individual sport.
Chick-fil-A does chicken right. You're kind of like Chick-fil-A. You do college football right.
Yeah. Well, not all the time. Last year, could have been a little bit better, but a couple years before was really good. And you're only as good as your last bet or last play. But yeah, I would like to think so that, over the long haul, I do it as well as anybody, that particular sport.
How did you initially get started with sports betting? And maybe share with me your first bet or two, legal or illegal.
Yeah, I've always had it in me, although I'll say, I'm a late bloomer when it comes to just, betting, professionally. But I bet my fanship way back in 1989. I liked USC at the time, just to be opposite of my dad, who was a Notre Dame fan. And Todd Marinovich was the quarterback. That's why I liked USC. He was a redheaded, left-handed kid. I'm redheaded, left-handed. So I liked him. I bet him at halftime of the game. SC was up 10. And I said, if SC doesn't win this one, and at the time, SC had lost like 6 in a row to Notre Dame. I was like, if SC doesn't win this one, I'll be a Notre Dame fan, Dad. And lo and behold, Notre Dame came back and beat SC, and Notre Dame won like 12 or 6 more times for a 12-game winning streak against SC, and that's all she wrote. Now, legally, believe it or not, I mean, obviously, I bet a little bit offshore, when I was in my 20s, but I didn't make my first legal bet until I moved here in Vegas about 10 years ago, and it was maybe the story of my career. I bet Georgia State, so a very low level game. I bet them plus 5.5 against Ball State. It was a wrong team favored situation. That's what I thought. Lo and behold, that was the case. Georgia State closed the favorite and got beat by 30 points.
You mentioned way back when quarterback for USC, Todd Marinovich, that's a blast from the past, a name from the past. And unlike you, he went on to become a complete bust in the NFL playing for the Raiders, if I remember right. But man, seems like it was only yesterday.
Yeah. Yeah, I was 6. So it was a while ago, but time flies when you're having fun. And I wish I would have won that bet because I could have saw a couple of national championships. Notre Dame hasn't won a title since I became a fan. USC won a couple.
What would you say are the top 3 skills to be a successful long-term winning sports bettor?
Management is the key word. So time management. I mean, we can all have as much money as under the sun, but we're always constrained by 24 hours in a day. And depending on if you're a professional, you're doing it as a hobby or just recreation, managing your time, I think, is critical, and not wasting time, because the market moves faster than ever before. It's not like you wake up on a Saturday, nothing's really moved, I'm going to bet this team. It's not like the screen doesn't move rapidly on a game day like it used to. So time management, I would say. Number 2, money management. People just do not have any bankroll management. They think they have an edge, and maybe they do have an edge, but they overbet everything. And even a guy like myself, even with, I might sit there with a card and I got 50 plays and 45 of them I got great CLV with an average of 3 points per game. I have losing weeks betting during the season, and people just do not manage their money to survive a losing week or two. So money management. And then I would say, lastly, ego management. You have to have an ego to be in this industry. Otherwise, why would you make a bet? I mean, especially you're making a bet and saying, hey, I'm right, the world's wrong as far as this line, and I'm willing to not only bet you even, but I'll lay 110 if it's a side or total to prove that I'm right and you're wrong. So you have to have ego, but you don't want too much ego. I mean, this can be a very humbling experience. So then you can check your ego sometimes at the door, and never be too high, never be too low.
Love the advice. Time management, money management, ego management. I've often said in my seminars, Brad, that money management, ultimately, you really never want to risk more than 2 to 3% of your bankroll in any one bet. And most people frown upon that. And I've actually learned that only about 2 to 3% of the people actually do this. But then again, to my original point, I think only about 2 to 3% of us are actually making money long term consistently. But I've seen in 31 years of doing this that so many sharp people, they get blown out of the water because of a lack of money management, or their ego says, gosh, I've lost 3, 4, 5 games in a row. I cannot lose 6. Yes, you can. And don't ask me how I know. I love what you said as far as not getting too up or not getting too down. Let's talk specifically about contests. I'm doing the Circa Millions for the first time this year. I've been asked back to do the Invitational at Circa. Took 3rd place a year ago. Golden Nugget took 2nd a few years ago, took 6th last year. I'm back in it again this year. Your thoughts on the contest? Which ones are you in? And before we get to that, if you wouldn't mind just reminding, I'm well aware, but for our first-time viewers, maybe remind our viewers what kind of success you've had in competing in contests in the past.
Yeah, I mainly have done the Golden Nugget because it's college specific. It's one of the few college ones. Obviously, there's a lot of great NFL contests, and not that I'm opposed to doing it, but my forte is college, so I like the combined contest. William Hill did a college contest a couple years, huge overlay. Did not do well in those, believe it or not. But I have done well in the Nugget over the last 5 years. I've come in the money in 3 of the 5. Not as many people as there used to be as far as entries. So my best finish with the most people was like 3rd about 5 years ago out of like 350 people. So I've had success. I'm going to continue to do it. I like I like the combination, honestly, of that contest where I can do college and pro. So that's probably my forte. But obviously, contests completely. But people don't understand. It's a completely different mindset compared to handicapping, betting. Doing content. You name it. It's an entirely different thought process.
I want to tap into that. You brought it up, mindset. Let's talk specifically about sports betting mindset. I mean, probably taps into the ego, if you will. But what is your mindset week in, week out, and what can you do to kind of get away from it all? Do you travel? Do you just chill, relax, lock yourself in a corner, meditate? What do you do to kind of get away from it all to decompress?
Yeah, that's a good question, and not enough people are talking about that because I think it's vital. Even once a week. I mean, obviously we get conditioned this time of year because football drives everything in this country, and you get staring in front of a screen 12, 14, 16 hours a day. I think it's important at least one to take an afternoon, an evening, dinner, whether it's go out with the significant other, go to a movie. At least do that once a week. I know, it takes some time. It's 2, 3 hours, but I think it's important for your mental health to get away from it and step away. As far as the mindset it takes is contest. What's different? It's just totally. It's obviously it depends on the contest, but the one that you're in that I was in last year and you kicked my butt. There are no stale numbers, so that contest was entirely different than your typical contest. Where I mean, if you're just basic fundamentals, you're playing the stalest of lines. If you agree with the line move since the contest lines came out, so it just and then if you're in the finals, you kind of go meta. You want to go opposite. Do you want to take stick to the fundamentals? It's just a little bit different thought process. And just, I made the number this. Here's the line currently. I have an overlay. Do I think that's enough to make a bet? So in that way, it's a little different.
Yeah, to your point, I think it's a lot different. One has nothing to do with the other. It's a difference of night and day. As far as being a pro bettor, I want to bet on the move early or against it late,
Yeah.
tied in with the critical, objective opinion. But in defense of what you're saying, like the Circa Invitational, as great as it is, I'm never forced or handcuffed or pigeonholed into having to make a bet on a Friday afternoon at 2:30, but everyone has to play by the same rules. So I love the competition, and ego-wise, I'll match wits with anybody. But as Steve Fezzik said, the only two-time defending back-to-back champion of the Super contest at the Westgate, he said that it is the absolute hardest because unlike other contests, it's not like you're getting the line on Wednesday afternoon and you have until Saturday night to maybe get a half point and half the best of it. But contests have nothing to do with what we do on a consistent long-term basis because, again, oftentimes I'm betting Sunday night, Monday, and then I'm often betting early, I'm betting late, but I'm never betting, more times than not, I'm not betting Friday afternoon at 2:30 in the afternoon.
Yeah. Yeah, unless some breaking news is happening and you're trying to get out in front of weather or injury news. So that's why I did like that contest. And you're also this. You're not only you don't have any stale lines to choose from. They usually the lines they used were circa, and they usually if they were shaded, they were shading accordingly to the right side. And then at further point, you're not competing against a bunch of Joes and mixed in with a few sharps. It's all sharps. It's a
It
who's
is.
who. So I love it. I'll be following along. They didn't invite me back, so I didn't do well enough. So they
My
said, "Yeah,
guess is
Powers, you stink."
My guess is you'll be asked back sooner than later. They increased the field from 16 to 25 this year, but I love what living legend Brent Musburger said. He calls it the sharpest hour in sports betting, and as I said last week's show, not my words, his. I just happen to agree with him because, as you just said, you're not competing against Joe Public from Topeka or Kalamazoo. You're competing against fellow sharps. Fezzik, as good as he is, he took 15th out of 16th place the first year they had it just a couple of years ago, and I don't mean to throw him under the bus because I have a lot of respect for Fezzik. Again, his words, not mine. So don't shoot the messenger here, Fez, if you're tuning in. But one thing I wanted to ask you as we're approaching week 2 now of the college football season, do you have an early prediction for the championship game?
Boy, this is going to be breaking news, and you're going to cut it up and say, "Wow, he really went on a limb here," or not. I like Georgia over Ohio State. I mean, college football is just. I mean, you don't get too many surprises. The surprise is, how many rosters are capable of winning a playoff format. Anybody can win an individual game and pull an upset, but then you got to turn around and play another legitimate team the very following week. There's only maybe 3 or 4 rosters that could even, I'd be safely saying, yep, that's a semifinal type of roster. And the 2 best rosters by far in college football are Georgia and Ohio State. And the reason I like Georgia over Ohio State, simple, most important position in all of sports. the quarterback position. Georgia has maybe the number 1 pick in the draft. Ohio State has a Kansas State transfer that might not even have been the starting quarterback at Kansas State this year.
As we're wrapping things up, any other best bets this weekend, my friend?
Yeah, let's do a total. Let's have some fun. So you mentioned the Old Dominion, East Carolina. That one's moved too much. One that's still in range is the Ohio South Alabama total over. And I know for those who are like, what? He's going off the deep end path. But that's where the value is. And these are two fundamentally different teams than a year ago. South Alabama, they got rid of a defensive-minded coach. He actually left to become the defensive coordinator in Alabama. They have an offensive-minded coach this year, and it showed in the first game where, they basically leaned on that offense to try to keep pace with the high-powered North Texas team. The defense for South Alabama, that's gone out the window. So better offense, lesser defense for South Alabama. Same can be true for Ohio, a very inexperienced team. Last week against Syracuse, defense didn't look the part, but their new pieces on offense did, particularly a Northwestern transfer at running back, ran for 250 yards. So I think that both teams say dead nut over, at least early on the season before the markets adjust appropriately.
Brad Powers, where can people find you?
Yeah, you can find me on X. Brad Powers 7 is the handle on X. And if you like what you see there, you can hop on over to the website, bradpowersports.com. I'm on a ton of different podcasts each week, so you can listen to, and different formats. We do deep dives, we do picks, we do all kinds of stuff.
Last question. If you could share with me 1 or 2 overvalued teams going into the season, and conversely, 1 or 2 undervalued teams going into the season, and I'll let you pick college or pro or both.
Oh, wow. Can I, can we air this episode 2 weeks ago and I say overvalued Florida State?
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah. I think Ohio State's a little overvalued. At the very top of college football, I think the Buckeyes are overvalued. I'll give you another one. The hat I'm wearing, I think Texas is overvalued in the markets. I bet their win total under. There's a big game between them and Michigan. I think it's pricey on the Texas side. So I think Texas is a little overvalued. Undervalued teams, I think Penn State is not getting enough love. And I thought that was going to be the case coming into the season. And I got that confirmation immediately with their blowout win against Penn over West Virginia last weekend. So they're a little undervalued, Penn State. I'll give you another one. Might surprise people. Alabama's not getting enough respect, at least in the futures market. Right now, I have Alabama 3rd in my power rankings, behind only Georgia and Ohio State. Not enough. Everybody, Nick Saban retired, and it's like, oh, Alabama's, no longer an elite program. I'm telling you, there's still a lot of elite players. And I'll go as far as to say that if you ask me who would I'd rather have for the next 5 years coaching my team, I'd rather have Kalen DeBoer than Nick Saban. So they might have upgraded as head coach. At least I'm not talking about a career resume because Saban's the GOAT, but I'm talking college football and the way it's going for the next 5 years. Give me Kalen DeBoer.
Brad, thanks for being with us. And again, just to remind people, a quick shout out on how they can reach out to you, please.
Yeah, Brad Power 7 on X, bradpowersports.com.
That's our guest. Halfway home, Brad Powers, professional sports bettor, college football betting expert. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back and talk UFC with Ace Wellerstein, UFC master bettor handicapper. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Justin. Known the guy for about 10 years, been betting with him. Hi, I'm Justin Donald. I'm here today with Scott Pritchard. Known the guy for about 10 years, been betting with him for 10 years. And if you ever need any advice on anything sports related, he's definitely the guy to talk to.
This is Scott Whitney from Podworks, the Vegas Video Network, Vegas Video Co-op, all kinds of good things. Oh my God, it's Scott Pritchard. Speaking of Scott Pritchard, you're watching Let's Bet.
Welcome back to Let's Bet, live and worldwide each and every Friday afternoon, 1 to 1:30 Las Vegas time. I'm your host, Scott Pritchard, professional sports bettor for the past 31 years. You just heard from Brad Powers, professional sports bettor, college football expert. Now we're going to shift gears and talk UFC, spelled just the way it sounds. Big action going on this weekend. Next weekend, big event, Sphere, Las Vegas. We have a special guest. We're talking to Ace Wellerstein. This guy is a UFC master bettor, handicapper, personal friend. Ace, welcome to the show.
What's going on, Scotty?
How's everything, my friend?
Good.
So what's going on this weekend when it comes to UFC? And then also the big one that everyone's talking about is next weekend at the Sphere. Man, I saw tickets going for up to $2,700 a pop, down to $700 now. But the Sphere, man, what's going on next weekend?
Well, the Sphere is basically one of the wonders of the world, and Dana has his signature all over this one. He did the voiceover for it. He's got Sugar Shane up the top of the card. He's got woman's title belt right below it. The production's going to be through the roof, and the Saudis are heavily involved with the Rida promotion.
Well, that's going to be super exciting. I don't think they posted any odds for the fights for next weekend, so we're going to focus in on what's going on this weekend, UFC action. Do you have any specific best bets that our viewers can take advantage of?
Let me put on the old man glasses. The Apex 27-foot cage. Fighters can't escape each other. The main event, I like Brady to grind out a win by submission, plus 950. Round 4, win, plus 1900. And round 5, plus 2350. We're gambling there, but the odds are very good if you hit.
I like how you think already. The fact that, like me, you don't bet players or matchups or teams. You're betting numbers. You're betting value, and we're getting plus 9-1 and plus 2350. You don't have to be right very often, my friend, to hit one of those.
Well, I've been known to click it somewhere 70-80%. So let's move on.
What makes you one of the world's best? Why do they refer to you as UFC master betting expert handicapper, Ace?
Well, I've been in the game 30 years. I started at UFC 7 managing Remco Pardol. I've been a top ring announcer, worked for a lot of promotions. I was basically the guy who brought the heavy metal sound to the industry in 1994-95. So I came over from the music business and just fell in love with it, just fell in love with the industry.
What do you like best about betting on UFC?
Well, I love the UFC, and I got to throw a shout out to Dana. Absolute genius, one of the best commissioners in sports. I'd say him and Adam Silver for the NBA, the way they've innovated. I mean, Dana, when COVID hit, created Fight Island, and he picked up a lot of audience when people were trapped at home.
Long term, where do you find the most value in betting UFC? Is it head-to-head, mano-to-mano? Is it over-under on rounds? Is it submission, KO, TKO? Do you have a specific way that you, or a specific trend that you consistently go with long term that's been profitable?
Well, what I do is I print out the card, and then I run through it, and I have no play, get rid of the fights I don't like. Then I start to break it down. I'll play about anything. The great thing about UFC betting is you have so many ways to make the cash register ring. Straight up, over and under on rounds, pick the round, how the fight ends, does it go the distance, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Ace, what would you say is the number one skill to be successful long-term winning betting UFC?
You have to watch every show, every fight, and you have to be in love with it. You absolutely have to have a passion, and I absolutely love it. I mean, I've seen every show since number one. I've worked with a lot of fighters over the years. I respect both male and female in the sport. It's like nothing else. It's like nothing else. And the upset can happen anytime.
Is there and last question, is there anything else you're looking at for tomorrow that maybe our viewers can capitalize and take advantage of for UFC action tomorrow?
I think the best bet is a fight between Peak and Ashmuz. Ashmuz is an Israeli national, one of two on the roster. These guys are going to try to kill each other. I'd say the fight goes the distance, minus 115.
How can people find you?
Well, basically, I've always been a private handicapper. I have a service that's you either know me or you don't. But now
either they can afford you or they can't.
I have a lot of whales in my ocean, and I've made a lot of people a lot of money over the years. So you can get me on Twitter now, Ace Weller 13, or if you run into me at any, I don't really go to the events anymore, but you see me around.
Ace, I want to thank you for being on the show, and I'm sure we'll have you back, my friend.
Hey, Scotty, you're the best.
Really appreciate that. That's going to wrap up this edition of Let's Bet for Brad Powers and Ace Wellerstein. My name is Scott Pritchard, founder of PritchardsPicks.com. Again, we're live and worldwide each and every Friday afternoon, 1 o'clock to 1:30 Las Vegas time. Go to my site if you want Pritchard's pick of the day each and every day. Are you kidding me? Each and every day, and a 10-minute audio video on top of it. Talk about value. For Ace Wellerstein and Brad Powers, I'm Scott Pritchard. Until next week, see the cashier.